And I basically declared I wasn't going to move a muscle of my body. I didn't care how much pain came up in my body. I didn't care what happened. And I had to sit through a lot of things because there was like bugs attacking me. And, there's a lot of pains come up in your body. But it was just kind of this declaration, like, this is what I want. And I think when you get that determined on something, then, you're going to create it. That's it. You're going to have that experience. So I went so deep, and I went and I experienced myself as pure consciousness. My whole body dissolved into, the body doesn't exist anymore that day. Everything turns into light, and you are everything. You're all of existence. You're all of existence. And it's the most profound, blissful experience you could ever imagine. It's like it heals everything that you could ever imagine in your life, because you just see the truth of what everything is made out of and what it's always been. And so it's so incredibly healing. It's indescribable. And then I went beyond that and realized myself as the absolute, which is, the core of what we all are together. It's the source energy. It's the source of everything. It's infinity. And when you kind of come back from that experience, then you can't perceive this world the same way anymore.
This is episode 52 of the Ownstream Podcast, featuring Nazarah Merah.
Welcome to the Ownstream Podcast. I'm Stephen Shelley.
And I'm Teresa Scoba.
And we're delighted you're with us this week. This is a really, really, amazing episode. We love all the episodes, but this one is particularly special because we're talking to a friend of ours, a woman we met back in Sedona. Her name is Nazarah Merah, and she has experienced an awakening that is, I guess, uncommon, though becoming more and more, I wouldn't say common, but possible. People are waking up, and she is a person who has woken up. And so her story is that basically this is the interview, is her telling her story. So if, a spiritual awakening is interesting to you, this could be quite pivotal. And the reason I say that is because I think one thing that many people are learning and seeing now is that a powerful, and I don't even know if this is the right word to use, but permanent or irreversible awakening is possible. But as we discuss with Nazarah in this interview, it really can only happen if you believe it can happen. And she makes it very clear that she made a decision that this was going to happen for her, and it did. Anyway, we met her in Sedona, and I first became aware of her. I think I became aware of her first, and we probably talked about it. But last summer of 2017, Bentinho was in Sedona, and he was giving weekly talks. And these would be live streamed, and so Teresa and I would listen in every week, and they were wonderful. Oh, my goodness, they were so beautiful. And Nazarah was there in person. And so one day after there was one of those weekly talks, the Facebook group that centers around Bentinho's work was all abuzz because someone the night before, and someone that we didn't know, had a very, very powerful, kind of instantaneous, some called it Kundalini awakening, I remember in how they were describing it in the Facebook group. I had never heard of anything quite like this occurring. And the description were very vivid and quite amazing. And so and it was her, and this was her experience. And she went on to write about it and blog about it. She's been very public and open about it, so we're not kind of letting any secrets out here. But anyway, we were aware of her then, quite interested in her then, and then we met her in Sedona back in December.
Yeah, and when we met her, I actually didn't know she was the same person as the one who had that powerful awakening, but we met her, and instantly we were both very taken by her, felt her presence very powerfully. It was very clear that she was an awake person who is very much connected to her source, and is bringing something into the world. And she now is, we met her in a gathering of individuals looking to lead the creation of a new earth, basically to lead the bringing of light into the world, and to do that in a number of geographic locations, and to have an online interconnected community as well. And so that's how we met her, and instantly we're sort of drawn together and talking about Costa Rica and worldwide transformation. And so since then have been in touch, but her awakening story it's so powerful, and you'll hear her talk in this interview, and so accessible too. Like, she's very, humble's not the right word. I think maybe she is, but like lighthearted. Like, she talks about subjects that to many are very painful of her life. Physical trauma she went through, war, she was in Iraq, PTSD, depression, anxiety, addiction, and all throughout telling this part of her story before we get to, what changed and how she experienced an awakening, a massive, radical, very quick and overnight awakening. She talks about them with this air of lightness and ease and laughter now, because she looks back on it clearly as a time when she was, misidentified with the small self, human self. And so you're gonna hear you're gonna hear as I'm talking, I'm sure, some really tropical rain downpour that's just come on us in Dominical, Costa Rica, where we are recording this. But hopefully you can still hear me. But it's great. We love it. It's really really exciting part of being here is how lush it is and how the earth is being fed by this. So, but anyway, she goes on from talking about her past to with this lightness of someone who can look back, having been awakened, having now seen that was all an illusion. And she did have a rapid overnight awakening. And then, she did have some years after that of, seeing old habits arise, mind habits. And she, like Stephen said, she decided that she was going to have self-realization and she was going to have it permanently. And that became her life's quest. And she, around that time, found Bentinho. And she had already, I think, moved to Sedona when he arrived. And she started attending those just magnificent weekly sessions that we were glued to from our travels afar, and had, the experience Stephen described, which she says was irreversible. She is now an awake human being and has not gone back. And this part I find to be, both her decision and her dedication and her belief that she would have it, and that she has experienced something irreversible, is to me such a powerful story to be telling, because I know for those of us who have been, quote unquote, on a spiritual path, I believe we're all on a spiritual path our whole lives, but maybe aware of one or seeking actively, there's often the refrain that it's a lifetime journey, or, it only happens for the few, or, I'm going to be stuck with these patterns forever. These are things that I have heard and believed and said, and still sometimes say many times when I'm re-encountering one of my most painful kind of habitual thinking patterns or belief patterns. And this to me is so inspiring, so hopeful, so powerful to hear somebody who dedicated herself to it, sat right down and said, I'm not leaving here until I get this, and had it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think what solidified her as a guest for this show was learning about where she came from. And she comes from a great deal of trauma and pain and addiction, and I think alcohol abuse, and incredibly, she spent time in the Army. And I think she even went to Iraq. Mm-hmm. In 2003. So she served in the military in a war zone. And it's kind of listening to her talk and the content and the way that she talks, because as Teresa said, there's a real lightness and warmth and radiance to her. It's just flabbergasting to me that she was in uniform in Iraq. What's that?
The other of many reasons that we asked her to join is that she's now working to, she's really out there creating leaders, and she has so much content online that is so valuable. We really wanted her to be broadcast out on this platform, because she not only has in very great detail on one of her blogs talked about her self-realization journey, she's now working with leaders, creating leaders to bring this energy to a new earth. And we really wanted to make sure to put that out there for our audience as a awesome resource.
She's definitely somebody to check out. She does a daily vlog, and we'll post everything in the show notes. But so check that out. So I think we'll leave it at that. You're in for a real treat. This is the whole journey, really, from deeply imprisoned in the pain of the matrix, if you will, to someone now free, running her own business, living her own life as an awakened human being. Really, really amazing stuff. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. We'll be back afterwards to quickly wrap up. Enjoy our conversation with Nazarah Merah.
Cool. Well, Nazarah, welcome to the podcast. It's such a joy to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you all.
We feel such a strong connection to you, and it just feels it's such a joy to be here in this space together. And we met back in Sedona in the fall, and we have become a somewhat of an online community of individuals connected and creating together. So it's just perfect to connect with you now, and we're so happy to have you here. So to get started, we'd love, we know that you've had such an amazing journey of spiritual awakening, and we really want to get into that with you. Can you talk to us, as a starting point? We know that you had a traumatic childhood, and had a rocky road growing up, and you say that it was perfectly designed to lead you forward, to lead you forward through that into awakening. Can you tell us a little bit about what that time was like, what happened, and why you now can see, looking back based on the experiences in your transformation since, why it was designed that way?
Yeah. I did have, I guess there's traumas, could be said, about some things that happened in my life when I was younger, and I was kind of a loner. I left home when I was young. I joined the military, the Army, when I was 17, because I was trying to escape kind of a challenging life situation, and then I had some challenges in the military when we got deployed. So I was deployed in Iraq, and that was really hard for me because I never wanted to go to war. And I know, it's kind of funny to think about joining the military, but I joined before September 11th, so before all of that. So it's kind of interesting how it all unfolded. And then after I got out of the Army, I was really in a bad place. It was kind of like a compounding of like a challenging childhood and a lot of isolation, and then the military, and then PTSD, all of that. So I spent several years, just really like so disconnected from everything. It was really like definitely PTSD. Like I wasn't really living. I was just trying to survive, and I had addictions that I was using to just be able to cope, to function, to like literally get out of bed every day. So and I spent a lot of time alone. Like nobody really knew me at those times. I was just kind of in my own world, and I didn't know how to connect with people. Even because it felt like my life was so bizarre, nobody wanted to hear about it because it's so like weird and off, and it sounds bad. Nobody wants to, you don't know how to relate to people from like talking about yourself, basically, from that perspective. And so, it was pretty challenging at that time in my life. But it progressively got better. I found yoga, and that really helped me kind of reconnect with myself. And then in 2012, I had an awakening, and that was so profound for me. It was quite incredible. It was like I got out of kind of my body, you could say, and I saw my whole life, like all of time kind of got spiraled, and I saw the moment that I had actually intended and set up this life exactly like this. Like I chose everything. I chose my parents. And I knew it was all going to happen like that. And I kind of created that, and I saw that I had set it up that way so that I could actually go through all these challenging experiences so that I could learn how to get out of it to be able to help empower people on this planet. And I saw it from like a soul perspective, like kind of like incarnation, and I didn't even believe in that really at that time. I didn't have any kind of spiritual beliefs really about that yet. And so that was so transformational. It was so like, it pulled me out of like a depression and feeling suicidal at the time to just complete bliss. And I was just so happy. I felt so connected, and all my addictions were instantly healed. I mean, it was kind of shocking. I went from drinking every day and smoking and using different substances to try to just cope to like, that didn't even make sense to even touch those things anymore. Because, when you're using certain substances, a lot of times we're trying to cover up our feeling of disconnection. And that's how we're trying to connect with ourselves. And so, but when you just instantly feel connected to yourself, then those things are like irrelevant. So it was quite profound transformation at that time for me. And like everything changed in my life overnight. And and then I just started, like learning about things like meditation. I was already kind of doing meditation at that time. I didn't really realize it, but I just was so light, and my mind had stopped is basically what happened. My mind stopped because I was so blissed out, and just realizing the truth of who I was, and that everything was all created perfectly for me. And I had a purpose here. And I knew that so strong. And I knew I was going to meet other people and like be working with them somehow, but I didn't know who and where yet. So that was kind of the beginning of my like spiritual journey, I guess you could say.
And when you were very young, prior to maybe say your teen years, what was there even the hint? Can you look back to those early years and see that there was part of you that was curious beyond the appearances of the world? Was there part of you that was maybe had an openness or a fascination with spirituality, or anything along those lines that doesn't that might not necessarily be kind of what, say, the usual 9 to 10-year-old is running around talking about? Were there any signs early on that you had that kind of interest or that kind of opening?
Yeah, it was interesting because when I was really young, I grew up in a very religious Muslim family. And so
here in the States? Was that in the U.S. or something?
Yeah, in the United States. So I was very insulated in that kind of culture, and my family was very religious. And so, but it never made sense to me. Like, even when I was really young, honestly, like I remember being 4 and just being like, I can't believe that that's how God is, like how it was being described. It didn't make any sense to me. And I already knew about perspective somehow at that time. I already could see like, well, this is people are just believing this in this way because this is what they grew up around and this is what they know. But somebody who lives somewhere else would have a totally different perspective. And I can't imagine that God would judge them. I couldn't believe that I could be more loving than God, because I couldn't judge other people. So I saw that and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I couldn't believe in hell. I couldn't believe that God was like an angry God and was going to punish you. It never made any sense to me at all. And so I was kind of, I went to Muslim schools. I went to these Muslim schools. And so I was kind of like, always kind of debating in some ways, like, and I would get in a lot of trouble because I couldn't believe what they were saying. And then when you're bringing up questions to question somebody and they don't really have the answers for you, then they kind of can get defensive, especially if it's a kid and it's an adult, and a kid is kind of, that's considered disrespectful, so, that was coming up when I was younger. I just didn't fit in for some reason with that culture. Everybody seemed to get it, and I couldn't get it. Yeah. So,
and that experience that you had later on. So it seems like you then went through a period of disconnection. Was when you were going through those years of running away and of depression and addiction, was there like a part of you all the way that was sort of questioning what life was about? When you look back at that time now, was there kind of a seeking that was happening in that time before you reached a point where you had more of an awakening later in 2012?
Yes, there was. That's like the core of my life has been a seeking, it felt like. And I didn't really know what I was seeking for, but I knew it was something because things didn't make sense to me. I just couldn't understand this world, to be honest with you, is what it felt like. It just never, ever made sense to me. And everybody else seemed to get it, and I couldn't get it and just go with the flow and just be happy like everybody, normal people were. For some reason, is how it felt. And so it was kind of always a seeking of like trying to understand myself. It started off like I used to study psychology a lot, and I wanted to understand, myself, like what's going on with me, what's, who am I kind of thing. And I could feel, it's interesting, I could always feel like the core of who I was, and I could feel it in my heart, and it felt so like pure and wonderful. But somehow it felt like I couldn't really be that in this world because it was so heavy and harsh in this world, and people weren't being themselves, it felt like too, because I could feel people very easily, and I was very empathic, but it felt like I could see what energies people were already playing out. Like I knew when they were talking where they were coming from, even though that wasn't what they were saying. I could feel into things, and so I could feel people's like real what was really being said, what that wasn't being said. And so it just felt like people were not speaking openly in a way too, like what they were expressing, like their fears and what was really going on with them. And I could just see how communication dynamics were going on in just our society. It's like people don't really open their heart and just express that they're scared or that they're hurt, or people just react in certain ways and play out certain patterns, and that's just learned behaviors here. So it felt like you can't really be open-hearted, otherwise people don't know how to take that, and they just they like, I don't know, people are mean. It felt like there's a lot of mean people to me, at least. Maybe that was just the environment I was in and what I was drawing in, I'm sure. But I didn't know how to relate to people, it felt like too, because I just couldn't just be like open and sensitive, and and people didn't relate in that way. It seemed like. So, but I could feel that was what I was, and I could feel that everybody really wanted to feel that way, but people were really scared about that somehow. I could see through what was going on, and I knew I was scared of it too, because I couldn't just express openly, and that felt really painful though, that I couldn't just, be myself in a way. And I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to be with like connect in that way with other people, because it never felt like people were going really deep and being really open. It was just really kind of shallow connections in some ways, at least how I was experiencing things in my teenage years and early adulthood.
I'm listening to you talk, and it's kind of like what you didn't experience then from other people. It seems to me that you are that now. Just having met you just a couple of times, you're very open and warm and deep and bright. And I'm trying to imagine you in the Army, honest to God. Why the Army? That is like wild to imagine you in the Army. Because you're such a beacon, and not to say that like everybody in the Army is like shut down and angry, but that's a place where darkness often prevails. And what was the motivation there? Were you looking for like discipline? Were you just looking for the easiest way out?
No, I was really in a challenging life situation. Honestly, I think there's a lot of people, to be honest with you, that join the military for this reason. There's so many people that are in like challenging situations, and the Army, it sounded too good to be true to me at the time, because I was working, I had dropped out of school. I was trying to support myself. I was all on my own. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any like mentor or adult to like even like guide me and say, hey, you should do this, or this is how you can get into a better. I was like totally cut off from my family. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anything, and I couldn't connect with anybody because I was so young that the people that were my age were all in high school and having normal lives, and the people that were like working, they were older, and I couldn't connect with anybody. So I was so isolated, and I was just working minimum wage jobs, just trying to survive kind of. And I didn't know how to get out of that. So I don't know, somehow the Army, I met a recruiter and it was like, oh my God, this sounds too good to be true. I get to get out of this place. I was in Dayton, Ohio at the time. I get to get out of Ohio and I can go somewhere and they're going to pay me to learn how to do a job, and they're going to give me money for college, and they're going to give me a free place to live and free food, and I get to travel. I was like, that sounded too good to be true, So I was just like, yes, this is what I'm doing. So yeah, I joined the Army, and part of what I was sold, because I wasn't thinking about going to war. It was never something I thought about. But, my recruiter at the time was like, nobody's going to go to war with America. You're just going to go to your job. And so that's how I signed up. And then September 11th happened after that, which is kind of interesting, yeah, so I didn't join the Army to go to war. And that sounds kind of funny now, but so it's just, there's a lot of young people. That's who's in the Army. Everybody's joining when they're young. They're like, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, basically. And they're just, a lot of people in the military, to be honest with you, not everybody, but a lot of people join, and they don't have any other opportunities that are really pulling for them. So the Army is the best thing. So, and I loved the Army as far as the connection. Like, I had a really enjoyable time when I was first in the Army, like just making so many friends, and, it was like I had a community, and you kind of had an identity all of a sudden. Of like, oh, I'm a soldier. This is who I am. And I have a community of people that care about me and, kind of have my back, and like you feel a part of something. So that felt really good. And I love that. I loved all the physical training. I loved it really built up my confidence in myself. And so I don't regret that experience, to be honest with you. It was such a powerful experience for me, because I definitely wouldn't be who I am today without the Army. It made me stronger. I went from just so depressed to like learning how to be strong from the Army. And definitely step into my masculine energy. So I got really good at that. And I became one of the guys, is kind of what it was like. Yeah. So I have a very feminine expression. It seems to come out now, but I have a very masculine side that is I feel very balanced, because I can be with a lot of men. I was, when I was in the Army, it was mostly men, and I could just be one of the guys. And I would do gross things just to show the guys I'm one of the guys. I'm not a girl. Don't look at me like a girl.
Well, like you said, it makes perfect sense, and that all of these experiences were things that you chose before you came, right? So I definitely want to dive into, you described, as we started the call, like an extremely powerful spiritual experience that was instant. It sounded almost instant for you, or part of it was instant. So you said that began a few years before 2012, when you started to get into yoga. Like, what were you doing at the time? Or tell us a little more about that experience, how that came about in 2012. How did that major, like, instant breakthrough happen, where you all of a sudden knew who you really were and all of your addictions were healed?
Well, that happened actually in 2012. That was very instant. And that was life shifting. Like, literally, it was like night and day. It was like people who knew me before that and after, are like, you're a different person, is really kind of what it felt like. So that happened in 2012, the end of 2012. And, it was like a very challenging, they were saying, oh, the world is going to end. It literally felt like my world was falling apart. Like, I was like in a really challenging relationship that ended. And then like me and my best friend had to like break up, and it was really bizarre things that were happening. I was like kind of like looking for a new place to live. And like, it was just really like, I felt so alone, and it felt like my whole life was falling apart. And then, somehow I got a hold of, someone gave me this book, The Power of Now. And I read just the first couple pages. To be honest with you, it was like his story. And it was like that somehow triggered something. It felt like a letter that I had written to myself from the future. Like, it felt like that, like these words, I had intended to be here in this moment. And this was a letter I wrote to myself from the future. And then everything, just like this vortex of energy, kind of just spiraled me out of my body to see time and see everything like in front of me, all of time, and how I set it up, and see outside of my person, you could say, kind of from the soul level. And so that was such a powerful activation. And that was so profound. So yeah, it was totally life-changing for me.
And so with this perspective, with this experience, maybe talk a little bit about how do you understand the notions of addiction and depression, anxiety? Let's specifically focus on addiction and depression. I think those are two, they kind of go hand in hand, and anxiety too. But maybe share a little bit about how they were healed and instantly healed, and then what now with that experience, how do you see those phenomena, if you will? What are those in actuality?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And, I definitely have, like perspective on that because of my experience. And, I know there's a lot of different ways that people work with addictions, and, but how I see the core of what addiction is there is a lack of connection within yourself. That is what addiction is. It's like you're not feeling connected to yourself, to a deeper part of your being. And so because you're feeling so disconnected, it's so painful. It's so incredibly painful. And that's what causes depression even too, and it's like it kind of feels like there's, these kind of identities or personas that we kind of hold on to because the mind is like, I don't know who I am. And so it will hold on to even very painful ones because it just doesn't know. And there's kind of a confusion about like, I don't know who I am. And then the mind just wants to replay all the old stories from the past. So that was what was happening in my situation, was that, when I would drink, it was my medication. It wasn't like, that's really what it was. I needed to drink alcohol so that I could just like feel like myself, literally. So when I was drinking, I could just feel like relaxed in my being and just present. I could feel that way. And I couldn't feel that way if I wasn't drinking. So, because all the mind kept running with all the old stories and replaying all those old memories, and they were too intense for me. And so that felt like, oh, well, that's who I am. And because they kept replaying, the mind kept saying, this is who you are. This is what happened to you. That identity was so painful. It was so incredibly painful. So, that it was an escape basically, because I couldn't feel the core of who I was, and like feeling that, no, those thoughts are not who I am. Those images that are coming up, that's not who I am. And I couldn't believe that because I didn't have any, I guess, experience or realizations or evidence for the mind to show anything else. So it just keeps replaying that again and again. And so I see that that's a lot of what's going on with addictions. It's like there's just the thoughts keep coming up over and over and over again, and they're painful thoughts. And we use these things to cope. And you can use, it doesn't matter what you're using. Alcohol isn't anything. It's just a substance to help quiet the mind. But, I went to the VA and they do the same thing, but they just call it legal stuff and call it prescriptions. And they'll give you a whole bunch of medications to just, numb you. Basically, it's to numb yourself. And I don't have a judgment about any of these things because they are required when you are in very deep states of depression. If I wouldn't have used these things, I would have for sure killed myself. I can't imagine living. I couldn't imagine living. That's why I was using it, to try to just be able to like cope. So I think that's what's going on in a lot of people that have addictions. And I don't think it's a disease. I know it's said like that. You can perceive, I guess if you perceive disease as something that can be, I think these things are transient. It's not who you are. I know a lot of people that are in AA. I went to AA at different periods of my life because I was trying to get out of my addiction, but, I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I didn't want to be a drug addict. I didn't want to have those labels on me. And those actually never made me feel any better. Mm-hmm. And going to, counsel, if you go to the VA and they're like, oh, you have PTSD, you have social anxiety, and they put these labels on you, that actually always just made me feel worse. Yeah. So, I think just adding more identifications to who you think you are, I don't think that that's actually getting you into more freedom. Which is really what you truly want. You want to be free and liberated from these thoughts. You want to feel your natural state of peace and ease. You want to be able to abide in presence and stay in presence and just feel what you are. And it's so hard, though, to do that when you have these thoughts that just keep coming up again and again and again. And the mind just gets in that pattern and it's overwhelming. So, of course, you're going to utilize something to try to just cope. And, so it's a medication that can be seen as you're medicating yourself. But the way out of it is not, and I don't want to say what anybody's path is because everybody has to find their own way, but the way to freedom from anything is in liberation from these types of thoughts. It doesn't come through another identity. It comes through releasing all of these imaginations that you have about who you think you are and just feeling the truth of what you are by experiencing yourself. And so that's why I'm really focused in self-realization. That has been such a powerful journey for me, and I love to. That's the foundation of anything and everything I'm always going to share.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One little follow-up on that, because you're right. Many in the addiction circle talk about once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. Once you're a cocaine addict, you're always a cocaine addict. Whatever the fill in the blank was is now an always. And I guess, do you, like, if you go out to dinner, do you have a glass of wine? Is that something you do now, or does that not even register as something you even want to do?
Yeah, no. In my experience now, I feel so free that I can experience anything if I want to. And I know that I trust in myself so much is what it feels like. So I know that I'm not using those things to, I'm not using like alcohol. I would never use it to cover up something. Because I'm not running away from anything anymore of a pain or a feeling that I don't want to feel. So I just see wine as just like any other. It could be just any other beverage. I don't drink very often, but when I do, I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying that. I did go through a period of time where it was like I kind of like my physical body kind of needed healing. So I actually became a fruitarian for a few years after that awakening, because it was just natural. It was just like this intuition that I needed to heal my body from all these substances. And so it was just this intuition to just become a fruitarian and eat raw foods. And so I did that, and it was just so easy and effortless for me to do it. And it felt so good. And during that time, it's interesting because it was so bizarre how shocking and overnight it was that I couldn't even understand it at the time. Like, how could I go from needing to drink every single day, throughout the day, and I couldn't go a day without it, and needing to smoke cigarettes every day and wanting to use all these substances, to not having any desire or inclination for them at all. So it was almost like there was a few times I wanted to just try it to see. And I would try to drink a beer or something. And I didn't even like it. I was just it wasn't doing the same thing anymore. That's how it felt. Oh, well, this isn't really that good. Why? Because it wasn't being utilized. I didn't need it anymore. So whereas before, if I would have a beer, literally I would chug one whole beer very, very fast. And that would just calm my nerves to be able to relax. And then I could just start drinking the second one, and just slowly sip it. But it was almost like I just needed to I just need to relax. And that was the feeling of anxiety. It was so intense in my being. So then after that awakening, it was just oh, I don't care about this. It doesn't even really taste that good, and I don't need it. And I could feel in my physical body, it didn't really want that. So I just wasn't drawn to it. And I just ate a lot of fruit and did a lot of hydration for a few years and, let my body heal. But then, it's as I've kind of, I guess, gotten farther away from that period of time in my life, I don't have any fear about anything anymore. Yeah. I don't have any fear about alcohol. I'm not scared I can trust myself. And it feels so good to just fully trust myself.
Well, you were saying that the fundamental problem was disconnection from self and all of those disorders. And what seems so remarkable and so powerful emanating from you is how immediate and life-changing and life-transforming that experience was. And, so many people, I think, they have a awakening moment, or they have kind of an insight, but then they go many years with kind of struggling between ego self and true self, Maybe talk a little bit about Was it like that for you, or was it instant? I know for Eckhart Tolle it was. He's one of those people. Actually, A New Earth was the book that sort of was my awakening point, so it's always kind of amazing to hear that. But was it like that for you? Was it just like, and then from that point on, you had a self-awareness? Or what did you do next? Was there a period of kind of cultivating that in terms of your self-realization journey, or was it just instant? What did you do next?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so after that experience, I was quite blissful for many months, to be honest with you. And then I was eating fruit all the time, and that just gave me so much energy. And I was so happy to just be able to get up out of bed every single day and not feel depressed, because I hadn't experienced that, it felt like, for so many years. So so that was that year. I remember saying that year, I was like, this is the best year of my life. I just felt so happy that year. And yeah, but there was still things that were coming up, like still old I guess, identifications with old patterns that did start to arise that felt heavy. And I didn't really know what was going on because, these things are so, they're so subconscious, and you're just like, it's some kind of fear pattern. And I was trying to learn more about spirituality, I guess, or consciousness, and, just understand what was going on in the world in a different way. And trying to find people that I could relate to on that level. And then I'd meet some people, and some things they would share felt relevant, and they felt like it matched what I was feeling, and some things didn't. So it was kind of an exploration at that time where I was just learning as much as I could and meditating a lot. And but I was aware of, I was becoming aware of these old patterns still, and a lot of them were still fears about not being good enough. And that was really the biggest things I was struggling with, were in not trusting myself. It felt like I just kind of had this constant self-doubt and insecurity that would come up at different points. And, I didn't really even realize what was happening, because if it's just been something you've been believing about yourself for so long, it just feels like that's true when it comes up, and you don't really know. There's no real clarity. So that was still playing out, and I was getting involved in different relationships, and the relationships were still being very challenging. So I knew that was a reflection for me. These relationships are kind of challenging relationships because it's reflecting my own thoughts and beliefs about myself. So yeah, it did bring up challenges. And I think the relationship dynamics that I was in were kind of catalysts to keep pushing me for deeper truth and deeper clarity within myself. And that was what was needed, because, overall, my life felt so much lighter than it did before. But if I wouldn't have had kind of that push from these relationship dynamics, and I think a lot of times we try to go find relationships because that's going to be oh, if I have this person that I love, they're going to make everything perfect in my life. And I would find this wonderful person, and then somehow it just kept feeling bad. I couldn't, it's I was getting the reflection so strong, and I knew it was in me. I had kind of stopped projecting in that way. I knew it was all within me, but I didn't know why it was coming up and how to heal that stuff. But it kind of, in some ways, it kind of made me give up on this idea that I was going to find somebody and they were going to heal my life and make everything perfect, I gave up on that. And that was necessary for me to go really deep in self-realization, because it almost took if I wouldn't have gave up on that idea, then I probably would have still been chasing for something external, oh no, I'm going to find this next person I'm going to be with there. Then it's going to be the perfect relationship, but I stopped projecting in that way and just realized this is all about me. And this is why I can't, feel, because it didn't make any logical sense too. Okay, well, everybody thinks you have such a great life and it looks like you have a great life, but I'm still not really happy to the level that I know I can be. I know that there's a deeper part, a deeper anchoring of this. And it was almost because the contrast got more extreme. It was because I had experienced such blissful states of feeling so connected to myself, then when I would feel out of that, it would feel so much more intense. So the more the contrast gets, the deeper you go almost with your own personal evolution, then the quicker that things start to feel bad that are not in alignment, and they actually just still feel just quite as bad, even though they could be subtler and subtler. Yeah. But still, they don't feel subtle. They feel really intense because the contrast gets more extreme. So that's kind of what pushed me to go like really just commit fully to self-realization. And I found Bentinho Massaro's work, and it was like almost instant. Like as soon as he was talking about endless bliss, and I love that. I was like, yes, this is like, I know this is the truth. I know bliss is the truth. That's what I knew. I kind of could feel that, like, more bliss equals more truth, because it just would, when I would get in those blissful states, it felt like, yes, I'm so connected and I know the truth of who I am. So, but I had seen some lineages almost of yoga in some different teachers where it was kind of like, no, just be so centered, and it's not about bliss, and it was kind of like letting everything go. And it felt like, well, that doesn't feel as exciting. Bliss all the time. Right. So I loved his sharings in that way, and I was like, yes, I'm supposed to. And also his mission, it was such an activation for me when I found his work, because his mission was enlighten society by 2035. And I had never heard anybody say that before, but it was like it activated the same feeling that I got at my first awakening. It was so strong. It was like I had that same kind of statement said to me in that awakening. It was like, there's an enlightened society and by 2035. And I knew that already. It was like, oh yeah, I'm here to be a part of that. This is the person. So I actually, as soon as I found his work, I'm like, oh, I'm going to work with Bentinho. We're working together. I know I'm supposed to work with him. I know I'm going to meet him, and I know we're going to work together. It's kind of how it felt. So, but then I kind of went through a love-hate relationship with his sharings because teacher has to like trigger you, right? Right. Yeah. So I was just like, oh, I don't like this guy. I can't believe I have to work with him. I'm going to have to work with this guy. I don't like him at all. And I get triggered. But I became obsessed. I like watched like every video of his on YouTube. And I couldn't stop, and I just became obsessed with self-realization. So I just kept going with it.
And so you had this awakening where it sounded like you were really in that state of a highly realized state of self, and then did it kind of begin to fade out some or come and go? And then another experience, maybe kind of triggered by Bentinho's teaching, kind of put you into a more durable state of that? Am I characterizing that correctly?
Yeah, that's really kind of what happened. It seemed like I got into like a kind of some old patterns of thinking. It was kind of feeling uncomfortable because there was this constant feeling in me like I'm supposed to do something really big in this world, and I'm supposed to help a lot of people. That was what kind of got activated from my awakening. Was the reason I went through all these things is because I'm here to make a big shift and big change in this world. I'm supposed to help a lot of people. But somehow I couldn't get myself to do that. Like I was still so insecure, and I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have enough confidence in myself to actually put myself out there. And so that was feeling so uncomfortable. I couldn't stand it anymore. When I moved to Sedona, Sedona just brings all your stuff up. So it got even more intense in Sedona. And it was just like, oh my God, I felt like I was getting like burned alive in Sedona. It was like, yeah. So it was very challenging during that time. It was like kind of just feeling like I was having a lot of triggers. And, the good thing was I had stopped projecting. I didn't believe that it had anything to do with anybody else, but it was still like feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. That's why I can't get out of these things, and I can't fulfill my mission. It's like, it felt like I had a mission here, and that's why I was here on this planet. And I felt so strong and palpable, but I couldn't get myself to actually do it. So that became too painful. And then when I found Bentinho's work, it was like another activation. It was like, oh my God, yes, like we're supposed to work together. He's on this mission with me. And I knew I was supposed to meet people. We were supposed to work together. I just didn't know who. Mm-hmm. And it felt like, oh, he's one of them. And so, and then he moved to Sedona. So right. It was like, of course. So yeah, I kind of got so committed to self-realization from his inspiration, and so I was just like, yes, I'm supposed to work with him. We're supposed to assist this planet together. So I love Bentinho so much. We're friends, and I do feel like, even though like we don't work together, like I don't work with his sharings, I feel like we are working together. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you definitely are. I think. So I'd love to hear your account of what occurred for you, because I didn't know you at the time, but I feel like I remember something profound taking place at the beginning of his weekly sessions in Sedona, And I think it may have been your experience that people were kind of so enlivened by. And I'd love to hear you talk about that if you can. This kind of second awakening, this kind of shifting into a more permanent kind of state of being aligned with self.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was such a profound experience, and yeah, I was so dedicated to like what he was sharing. I was so excited about his classes, and I was really just like so committed, because I kind of knew that this was the key, that I had to go all the way with self-realization. I think I just got to this point where I was like, I know this experience of really feeling connected to myself. I had felt that when I had my first awakening, but then somehow it kind of didn't seem to last. But I just knew, I felt empowered enough through his sharings that I could go all the way. I just believed in what he was teaching, and I believed in him, and I believed in that I had the power to do that. And that was really a crucial step, because before I had felt disempowered, like, oh, I can't, I wish I could be like Eckhart Tolle, and I wish I could be like these people, kind of, and going all the way and having a deeper realization. So I just really became so focused on it, and I just made these powerful declarations like every day, again and again and again, that like, this is all I care about, this is all I want. I want to know myself as the absolute, and that's all I want. It's all I care about. Nothing else matters to me. And I just started declaring it every day, and every single thought that would come up and say, oh, but maybe you're not going to be able to, but what if it's I would be like, no, I don't care. I'm doing it. I don't care. I'm doing it. Nothing else matters to me. This is all I care about. And I just kept declaring that. And so I wouldn't let any doubt. People were like, I was telling people that that's what I was doing, and they're like, oh, it's going to be really hard. And I'd be like, no, I'm doing it. I don't care. I don't care. Because I had to refute all my doubts about it. And that's really so important. So anybody who's on the path of self-realization, that's what I share. You have to let go of all your doubts. You just have to declare that's what you want. And so, I was just meditating all the time. I was staying as awareness, which is kind of a living meditation. You're staying in a heightened state of awareness constantly. And and so, I was just like letting the world go, kind of thing. It felt like I was just I let my relationship go. I let everything go and just focused on that. But from the day that I declared that's what I wanted, literally, it took me 10 days to have my deep breakthrough into the absolute. So it doesn't take a long period of time. And I want to share this with people, because we're at a period now where you can have profound realizations in very quick, accelerated time. And it's just about you really have to get sick of everything else. That's what it is. So I think it takes like a level of just getting really tired of your mind, and you have to get sick and tired of it. So almost the triggers, and what had happened before that was I was going through like a trigger every single day. It was like almost like everything got accelerated. So I was doing this amazing Kundalini yoga practice for like 3 hours a day. And then I was feeling super psychic and super connected. But then all my old stuff started coming up. So every day it would be like a major trigger. So the contrast got so intense that it like pushed me to like, okay, I don't care. I'm done with this mind. I'm done with these old patterns. I'm done with this old pain. I don't want to live like this. I know it's going to keep going on for the rest of my life until I go all the way, kind of thing. And so, when you get that kind of determination, then anything's possible. You can do anything you want. So that's what I did. And it took me 10 days, and I just let the world go. I was writing a blog, but I even had to let the blog go. Like, that's it. I'm getting off Facebook, and nothing else exists except, the absolute, and that's it. That's all I care about. And then I remember being in his class. I drove up to his class, and I was just staying as awareness. I was staying in meditation the whole time. And what he was sharing, I just started laughing in the class. It was just like this, I could feel the truth of existence, basically, that I was everything. And I just started laughing so hard. And the energy that I was laughing was like, everybody was turned and looked at me. And everybody was looking at me, but I couldn't even get out of it, because I was just kind of getting out of the ideas of what I thought this reality was. And so everything was feeling like, like, whoa, I just needed to keep going with that. It was almost like what had happened was it was a whole Kundalini activation, I guess, through my whole, because all my chakras like opened up, and I didn't even know what that was before, to be honest with you. I didn't really know anything about that, but that experience of it was like so much energy shooting out of my body, and my whole, like my heart just felt like there was a black hole in my heart, and my whole body was just, I never had that much energy coming through my body. My whole head was like being pulled open and there was just like light shooting out of my whole body. And we went to chocolate. I was in such a, intense state. And so I ended up going to Chocolate Tree. I got a ride over to Chocolate Tree. And then Bentinho just kind of like held the space for me to go deeper, because I felt like I needed to go deeper into it, even though I'm in this public place. And, everybody's there, but I couldn't, like, it felt too important. Like, this was too profound, like when you're starting to realize the truth of what you are and what this reality is, it's just like nothing else matters, So there was like these thoughts coming up like, oh, you need to just stop this, and people are looking at you. And, but I just kept pushing those thoughts away and going deeper and just kind of saying, who is the knower of this? Who is the knower? Who is the knower? Kept going deeper. And, I was like laughing, and it was just this amazing activation. And then after that at Chocolate Tree, I got so determined to keep going, but I was still feeling really fragmented in my mind, because the mind was just like trying to talk and say all these old things of fear. So I just went to sleep, and I woke up early in the morning. I was out on the land. I woke up early in the morning before the sun, and it felt like everything just closed up in my body again. Like all of that openness closed up. And and my mind was like, oh, you're never going to experience that again. That's it. You just should give up on this. And I was just, no way. I'm not going back to this old pattern. I'm not going back to that. So I went and I just declared that I don't care how long I have to sit here. I was sat by the creek in my favorite spot that I used to meditate all the time. And I was like, I don't care if I have to sit here. I'm not going to leave here until I know the truth of who I am as the absolute. Like, that's kind of, it was so serious in me. Like, I don't care about anything else. I don't care what happens to like anything. I don't care about my apartment. I don't care about my business. I don't care about like anything else right now. This is all I want. And I'm going to stay here until I know the truth of who I am. I'm going to sit in meditation until I experience myself. And I basically declared I wasn't going to move the muscle of my body. I didn't care how much pain came up in my body. I didn't care what happened. And I had to sit through a lot of things, because there was like bugs attacking me. And, there's a lot of pains come up in your body. But it was just kind of this declaration, like, this is what I want. And I think when you get that determined on something, then, you're going to create it. That's it. You're going to have that experience. So I went so deep, and I went and I experienced myself as pure consciousness. My whole body dissolved into, the body doesn't exist anymore that day. Everything turns into light, and you are everything. You're all of existence. You're all of existence. And it's the most profound, blissful experience you could ever imagine. It's like it heals everything that you could ever imagine in your life, because you just see the truth of what everything is made out of and what it's always been. And so it's so incredibly healing. It's indescribable. And then I went beyond that and realized myself as the absolute, which is, the core of what we all are together. It's the source energy. It's the source of everything. It's infinity. And, when you kind of come back from that experience, then you can't perceive this world the same way anymore. Because you can't perceive the world the same way anymore. It shifts you. It does. Mm.
Yeah, that's amazing. I read about it like the day after, and was just so blown open by that whole experience. People were talking about it, and you came, and then you wrote about it, and it was beautiful. So thank you for sharing that here, because that's obviously a very intimate, personal, and rare experience. But I think you, like us, are interested in sharing it because it makes it more possible, makes it more real for people. Like, oh wow, this really is something that can occur. It's not. I think there's a general belief out there that, oh, those kinds of experiences, quote, aren't for me, or they're just for very, very few people. And what I think Teresa and I both have come to believe is that particularly in the last, let's call it, era of humanity, and who knows how far back that goes, but maybe as far back as the 50s, but certainly in the last decade, energy has changed on the planet, and the experience you describe is more and more possible. But kind of like what you said, belief has to be the taproot, like really believing, and not even believing. It sounds to me like you just knew that this was who you were, and that there was no, it wasn't as if there could even be resistance, because you already knew that, and it was just sort of matching to that. But maybe from your own point of view, speaking to someone who may have had various awakening experiences, but might at this point be on the threshold of the big kind of transformation that you've had, what are some words of encouragement or confirmation that it is possible, and that it's not for just the few people out there?
Yeah, I love to inspire people in this way. This feels like what I'm so dedicated to right now, because I know that it's possible for anybody and everybody. And like you're saying, everything has opened up in the past 10 years. But to be honest with you, I feel like just in the past year, and even just right now, I feel that the energy is even more open. And I'm working with a group of amazing people that are so dedicated to this, and they are having profound realizations right now. So, what I've called this is irreversible self-realization. And, I think and anybody who desires this, who truly desires this and declares it and decides that's what they want, they can experience it. That's it. It is very present and open, because things are shifting so rapidly on our planet right now. And what's happening is we are activating leaders who are in deeper realizations, because the leaders of this world are going to be self-realized beings, because there comes a sense of doing good for the collective. When you do that, yourself beyond just your body and your person. So it's so present right now. So if you're feeling called to this, if you really have a desire for this, yes, you can realize yourself. You can. You just have to decide that's what you want, and you have to declare it every single day, again and again. And the only thing that will hold you back is your doubts. But what you're going to face these fears of the mind. It's going to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to fall into the abyss of the void, and I don't know what's happening.
You said abyss. That's an awesome word.
Yeah. It's like you're going to fall through, you're falling out of every idea you've ever had about what you thought life is. That's what it is. You're falling out of all the ideas. And you realize that everything in this experience is just made out of ideas. It's what it is. It's like, it's just a perspective that's being seen. So you can realize yourself, though. And there's so many amazing teachers that are sharing on this now. And it just takes your determination and your dedication and your true desire. So I know I'm so inspired by so many people that are connecting with me, that are going deep. And I've seen so many profound people having realizations just like right now, like so quickly, much faster. I mean, for me, it feels like I had that deep breakthrough, and then, I just kind of continued on, like, I want to dissolve all of the mind programs. Basically, I didn't want to be identified with any of them. So I kept staying as awareness more and more and more. And that's what it takes. It takes staying as awareness, aware of awareness, just a heightened state of self-awareness continuously, really just continuously. And it's a challenge at first, because the mind is like, no, I don't want to do this. No, the mind's going to say all of these things. The mind thinks that it's you. And if you keep listening to it and believing that that's you, you're going to believe that and get pulled off of your actual intention. So this happens with anything, it's like anything that you would want to create even, it's the same thing. You just have to get so determined and be like, this is what I'm doing. Any thought that comes up to try to pull you in another direction, you have to keep being like, no, I don't care. This is what I want. You have to keep declaring it, because the mind doesn't want, it wants to stay in its old patterns. It wants to stay in its old patterns. But you are not, the mind has no control over you. Only if you decide that you want to identify with those thoughts. That's it. If you decide you're going to identify with those thoughts, and they're very convincing, I will say that they'll come up with a lot of very convincing thoughts, like, oh, you're going to ruin your life if you go down this path, and it'll say a lot of fearful things to scare you off of it. But if you decide that this is what you want, and it's a level of trust. You're trusting yourself. You're trusting yourself. because you can't lose anything. Nothing can happen to you. You're going to fall through the space of presence into the deepest state of presence you've ever experienced, where there is no thoughts. There's no identity there. So you have to be willing to let go of all of the thoughts and ideas you've ever had about who you thought you were. And it can feel like something is dying in that, because what is dying is all these old thoughts and ideas and beliefs about who you thought you were. They have to be let go of for you to feel yourself as the absolute. So
it's so powerful. And I have to say, just like hearing your experience, I feel like a complete like radiation through my body of aliveness and awareness. It's like, so it is, you are making this so accessible and just bringing people to that place. And it's so powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that now that you've had this experience, you're out there as a leader in this world. Can you talk about, sort of the purpose that was activated for you, or the calling that you found, and how that's been expressed through you since that experience?
Yeah, it's been just unfolding very presently now, because I just started sharing about a month and a half ago, it feels like. And I've been mentoring some people that are deeply into self-realization. But what's been coming through is sharing about leadership, because that's what we need. We need new leaders for this planet who are self-realized beings, who are coming from a level of purity that they really care about the good of the collective and the good of the whole. And we want to have these leaders modeling a new way of being for everyone, That's what we all want to step into, so we can actually totally evolve and shift our planet into something really profoundly amazing and beautiful that we've never experienced on this planet before. So that's what I'm really excited about sharing on. But, I see that this self-realization, it's just a word, but it's just really the truth of what you are, but it's going to be integrated into everything. All the systems on this planet are going to be totally shifted. So I see that so clearly, because I've had these profound visions coming in of what we're creating together as a collective here. And I'm so excited about it. And I see that, all of the systems, there's going to be inspiration in all the new systems. And there's kind of a feeling that's coming in my being of sharing more in the business world, of just like a new way to approach business. And so I don't know exactly what will come out of my being. It feels like it's not like what I share actually has nothing to do with spirituality. So I want to get it out of that box altogether, because it's not a spirit. I don't even know what a spiritual person is. I have no clue what that is. So I don't know what that is, and that's not what I am. So I just want the freedom to be expressed in anything and everything, and just bring this sense of lightness, of like life, of ease and just presence that we can bring into every single aspect of our world. So however it comes out and expresses, it doesn't really matter. It's just really everything's made out of the same thing. So, we're just kind of like finding the lightness in everything, whatever it is. And that's how everything will shift, not through the old ways of perceiving things through fear-based ideas and separation ideas. That doesn't get us anywhere. That doesn't get us moving forward. So I'm just going to keep holding this vision that I have, and I'm going to keep, spreading this lightness that I love to share in, and inspiring others in this way. And that's what I see leadership is. It's really inspiring others to a new way of being, to a new perspective. So, yeah.
And so a couple of months ago, you just alluded to the fact you wanted to talk about business, and that's interesting to us too, in thinking about kind of old ways of doing business and emerging, if you will, ways of doing business, new models. And I think to get some clarity on how you think about this, it might be interesting to just talk a little bit about your decision to start doing, I think, daily broadcasts maybe through YouTube or Facebook or one of the two. And so how did that happen, and how did that inspiration occur, if you will, and then what were you looking to do with that? Was it really simple, or did you have and in a moment we'll talk very clearly about the program you're doing now about activating leaders. But was there that goal in mind, or did it happen more just like, I want to share, and what's the nearest platform to share from?
Yeah, I had no intention about it whatsoever. It just all of a sudden started feeling really exciting to share. And I hadn't shared on video. I had a blog through my journey, but it started feeling really exciting to share. And it was just kept coming up. Like, I just need to keep sharing and just connecting with everybody. So then it just kind of got decided, I'm just going to do a live stream every single day. So that's what I do. I do a live stream every single day, either on YouTube or Facebook, but I always post them on YouTube. And I love just connecting with people. And it feels like it's kind of been revealing it to me. I don't know, because it's interesting because I don't hold a projection of like, this is how it's going to be anymore in that same way. It's like, it kind of just gets revealed to me. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And as long as it feels exciting, that's what'll keep happening. And then if it's not feeling exciting, then I won't be doing it. So I've been sharing like that. And it's just been kind of coming through this leadership thing. I didn't really know. I knew Bentinho was doing a leadership program, and I was feeling like I'm supposed to work with him on it. And then I was like, I think I'm supposed to work with you on your leadership program or something. And he was like, no, I don't feel like we're supposed to work together on this program I'm creating. So I was like, oh, well, I guess that means I'm supposed to create a leadership program. Strong that I'm supposed to do something with leadership. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to create one. And so then I was just kind of like, it's been revealing itself to me, to be honest with you. And I've been learning from everybody as I share what it is that's desired to be explored and shared upon. So a lot of what's been coming out in my sharings regularly, it feels like it's a lot about kind of seeing the mind and how the tricks of the mind and how it works. And it feels like that kind of seems to help align people a lot to like getting out of the tricks of the mind. So you can just relax back into your true self, into presence, and like feeling that regularly. After you start doing that regularly, then it just kind of becomes your normal way of being again, So I've been having fun doing that. And I think I have no desire to end doing that anytime soon. I love sharing every single day live like that, and connecting with everybody in that way. So it's just kind of, it's unfolding itself. But I have been getting very strong visions of what we're creating on the planet together. So, they come in and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Okay, well, I guess we'll see how it's going to unfold, because I don't even try to put together how it's going to come together. I just know it's going to come together. And I just keep feeling that vision within myself. And it just feels like it's already here within me. So then it seems like everything just starts to sync itself to reveal how it's going to come together. So I see it as it's just aligning your feeling state, as you just align your feeling state, then the visions just come in. And if you just keep holding that feeling state, then everything will just sync to you and it'll reveal itself. So it's quite effortless. It's quite easy and effortless. I've been seeing the creation process can be experienced in this way, and it's quite fun and blissful. So I'm kind of sharing that too with the people that I work with, of how to explore creating in this new way, outside of identity, even altogether, outside of I'm doing this and this is what I decided and this is my vision and all of that,
And it really does seem like this notion of leadership is popping up in a lot of places in our field too, through Bentinho, through you, through others who are creating incubators and spaces for people to rise in this way. Tell us a little bit more. I know you talked a little bit about it already, but about the vision that you see for where humanity is going and how these leaders will play a role. But you did say you have a strong vision emerging about where we're headed. Talk a little bit about that and the collective.
Yeah. Yes. So I see that we're creating this global community of leaders, really. This global community is of activated leaders. And what I see as leaders, it's a new type of leadership, because it's heart-centered leadership. And it's where we're working together. It's not like, oh, I'm just the leader and I'm the leader over here. And there's all these separation with the leaders. No, we're a community of leaders. And why we're leaders is because we've already stepped into a higher level of being, you could say, of just feeling more of our natural state, which is not like there's lower and higher. It's just like when you're feeling your natural state of presence more and more, then you just feel the lightness and ease that everything already is. And so then it's very easy to express from that feeling state and share from that feeling state and help other people align to their natural state too. So we're leading the way on this planet through embodying more and more presence, and through showing how to live from this state of presence. And from that comes, just this openness to your heart. You're able to speak openly and authentically and very vulnerably, so we're shifting what leadership is too, because leadership isn't going to be about just putting on a persona and this is who I am and kind of creating a persona of, of just a facade. We're going to be able to feel this very strongly if somebody's putting on a facade. So the leaders have to be very authentic and open with themselves and expressing in that way. And so that's the new type of leadership that we're embodying. And so I see a lot of the beings who I see that are part of this, they're already very heart-centered beings. So a lot of times it's really about stepping into a new level of confidence within themselves and trusting themselves. So it's not just like, oh, I'm so confident. It's just about you're trusting your heart and what's coming through your heart in each moment. And you're letting that guide you. So that's what we're moving into, heart-centered leadership. And the people that are already leaders in leadership roles, it's about really integrating how they can learn to integrate connecting with their heart in a deeper way. So they're really feeling the goals that they're aligned with and their mission and what they're creating. And it's coming from a heart-centered place so that we're all working together for the good of the whole civilization, for the whole world, so everything's going to align to that. So everything is going to change. All the structures that are going on right now, it has to match that, because it's going to start to become very apparent who is speaking from this place of the heart and really caring about the deeper, caring about the whole, and who is not, because we'll all be more sensitive to feeling into this. So this way of authentic expression, it's just going to be a natural way of being, being able to speak, because you'll be able to feel with your heart. Your heart can tell everything. The heart is so powerful, and people don't even really realize how powerful the heart is, but the heart can know everything, anything and everything. So we're still really learning on this planet how to be fully embodied in the heart, and how to utilize this system in a powerful way to filter the thoughts through the mind, through the heart. Because when things are filtered from the mind into the heart, then you can feel how they're affecting you and how they're affecting everybody around you. So it's not just fear-based ideas that the mind likes to project from the past and project them into the future. And the heart will filter that out and tell you what's true and what's not true. So that's where I see things moving into as on a whole. And I think the ones that I'm working with, we're creating kind of a global community, and we're going to be assisting each other in creating new systems and assisting the collective in general so that they can step into deeper states of presence. And as we create these new systems that are modeled from this new state of being, then we'll be able to share this with the collective, with everyone, here, we've created a new system of how this can work. Instead of waiting for somebody else to do it, we're just going to do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're just going to do it all ourselves, and we're going to create a whole new way to be, a whole new civilization, basically. And we'll model it to everyone. Whoever wants to be a part of it can use our systems or integrate with our systems.
And so you've started this program, is that right? Or is it about to begin, or where does that sit?
Yeah, so I'm doing a mentorship program right now. So I'll be offering this regularly throughout the year. I really love working in small groups, mentoring people. And then I'm also going to have another program that's about to be released. So it'll be one where people can start doing it on their own and not work. They won't necessarily be working with me as in such a close setting initially. And maybe if they want to at some point, then they'll be able to do that. But just so that it can reach more people, because I know that there's a lot of people that are really feeling this. That's why it's coming up. It's like we're kind of tired of the old ways, and we know that we're here to make a change on this planet, but we have to step into a higher level of power within ourselves, and not the old type of power. It's just like feeling empowered by the truth of who you are. Just feeling your natural state. And that's what your natural state is, just this natural confidence of I exist, I'm here, I have a reason to be here, and it just comes from that I amness, really, not because I am something this or I'm that or all these different personas. Just the fact that you're here and you exist means you are you're so crucial for what we're doing. And if you have something that's coming through you in the moment, coming through your heart of I see a vision, I want to create this, I want to make a change, you're trusting that about yourself. Mm-hmm. And you're not letting your mind come in and say, no, you're not good enough, that's not good enough, you can't do that, you're not able to do that, it's never going to happen, all these old limiting beliefs. We have to get past these so we can really totally activate as leaders and start sharing in a bigger way and trusting what's coming through us and just getting out of the way of it. Getting out of the way of it, because it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the good of the whole. So that's what I'm the direction I'm sharing, just getting out of the identity of it altogether. So then it comes from a more pure place, and we can just let these visions come through us and let them move through us to help everybody on this planet.
And you said it was a kind of confidence in many cases that a person needed in order to really kind of begin to operate from that place. I'd love to hear more, maybe as we begin to wrap up, but to hear more about ways that you help people cultivate that confidence and lose or drop these limiting beliefs of maybe just being this small self when in fact we are this vastness.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Yeah, I think the old way of confidence used to be like trying to psych yourself up and just saying, kind of like trying to create a certain image of yourself and then projecting that out and hoping other people are going to believe that about you. But we're moving out of that because we'll be able to feel if it's really truthful or not. And so this confidence, honestly, it comes from self-realization. It comes from just connecting with yourself in deeper ways, because you start to see through these old thoughts of the mind. You start to see, oh, that's not me. That's just happening in front of me. So that starts to soften the identification with them. And then when you hear them, not taking them on and just reacting from them. And so we kind of like work through ways to just build this muscle of like moving more from your heart and seeing that those thoughts are not you. They're not who you are. They're just happening in front of you. And so the more that you stay in a heightened state of awareness, you can start to become aware of this. And then you feel the energy of those thoughts, but we're not running away from the fear of those thoughts anymore. We're just facing those feelings right here, right now within ourselves. And we're kind of just dying into them. So that whole identification just starts to die in the now moment. And then we can find ourselves in presence again. So it's like a constant self-realization into presence. Because where you are, who you are, is in presence, not in those old ideas and thoughts. And the more that you keep connecting with yourself in presence, then you start to like soften around these thoughts. They start getting their power over you. They can't really control you there because they can't exist in presence. And you start feeling that, oh, what I actually am is the presence, and nothing can touch what I am. Nothing can touch what I am. I'm the space of everything. So the space is untouchable. So when you know yourself as a space more and more, and you feel yourself there, you experience yourself there more and more, you just feel the truth of what you are, which is you're one with everything, and you aren't just these ideas and thoughts. You're not those things. Those things have nothing to do with you. So we're getting out of the mind altogether and just moving from the heart, because the heart actually moves the body. That's what it is. Like the heart is moving the body, but the thoughts just come up and they seem to create all these confusion and try to pull you in all these different fear patterns. But if you got out of those thoughts, then you would just feel what wants to come through your heart, and you would just let it move you. You let it move you in that way. And then as the thoughts come up, we heal them by just feeling them and accepting them here and now and letting them die into presence. And then we find ourselves in presence, and then we take an action step forward from that state of presence. Because when you're in that state of presence, it's like you get renewed, you get healed from that state of presence. So it's really about like learning how to see these patterns of the mind too. It's kind of what gets shared a lot, how to catch these little patterns of the mind and see the patterns that they're playing out. Because once you start seeing through them, then they don't have any power over you anymore. And then you just are what you are. You are so powerful already. So you can't not be what you are. You just are what you are. So then things just move through you. Just this natural role that your body is here for, it just starts activating and just starts coming through you because it just feels naturally exciting. Just like, yeah, like nothing can stop that if you didn't believe those thoughts that were negating it or trying to doubt it or pushing it away. You would just keep moving forward and just following your excitement.
It's amazing to think about the infinite potential there is if people are able to clear through their minds and allow the channel to flow through of their true self. Like it's just the infinite power of creation that's there to transform this world is so powerful. It's amazing. I know
right now.
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I think we need to wrap up. There's a few questions that we ask at the end of every podcast. Did you want to jump in with another question?
No,
okay.
That's great.
There's a few questions we ask at the end of every podcast, so I'll just ask the first now. The first is, what book or books up to 3 would you recommend that every human being should read?
Oh, wow. Well, I really love The Power of Now. That book was so transformative for me, very life-changing. That book, I mean, it's like, it's so timeless. It's so timeless in every way. And let me see, I'm trying to look on my shelf. I haven't been reading in so long. Like, I had to let everything go.
Yeah.
So, whatever comes through me is just going to come through, and I'm not going to have any more ideas added to it. I really love a lot of people probably follow this, the Raw Material, so the Law of One books.
Yeah.
Those are really interesting books because I love to see these different perspectives that are given from, other beings from other planets. And so, I like to hear these things, but then I kind of like to find it within myself too. It's just like kind of going, hearing the inspiration, but then tuning into how the perspective wants to come through my own being, instead of just believing more kind of ideas that come from somebody else. It's like, It's always nice to kind of go and connect within yourself and feel like, oh, does this feel really true for me? And does this feel really in alignment? This other book, this was really powerful for me. This book is really it was pretty life-changing for me at one point, was the Louise Hay book, You Can Heal Your Life. I remember reading that, and that was kind of a big shift for me. It happened right around the time I got into yoga, and I started doing her practices and her affirmations, and those were really transformative for me. And I think it could be for anybody that's had a lot of pain in their life, or just is going through some kind of challenge, even if it's like a health challenge or a relationship challenge or financial challenge, whatever it is. It's so transformative if you're open with yourself enough to really do that and really be with yourself and face that, face these old pains. And that's really what we need to do on this planet to heal as a whole. So that's what we're working on, I feel.
That's beautiful. Second question is really directed to somebody that might be very much in the thick of the matrix, as we sometimes refer to it, or very, very trapped in some sort of deep identification, maybe even addiction. But if you could share one, maybe not even an idea, but one truth to that individual that could unlock some freedom and maybe get them moving in a new direction, what might that be?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I would say, with whatever you're going through, there is a core part of who you are that's untouchable, and it's never, ever, ever changed. Your whole life, it's always been what you are, and you can feel it. It's always there. It's always there. And, when you're going through something that's really challenging, if you can find that and you can feel this part of yourself, this is like your absolute self. There's no thoughts in there. There's no ideas in there. There's nothing but just the core of what you are. And it's always there. You can't not feel it. It's always there. So if you can find that place within your heart, and just feel that and connect with that. And there may be a lot of pain that comes up, but you're kind of just falling into that space within yourself and letting go of the thoughts that are coming up. That is really where all the healing happens, because that part of your being knows everything that you need to know to help you get through any type of challenge. It knows every single thing. So you just start trusting yourself more and feeling that, finding that place in yourself. And it's felt in this deep state of presence through your heart. So yeah, I would just love to inspire anybody and everybody to really connect with that part of themselves more and more, and not be afraid of what they might feel, because sometimes when you start going into your heart, you'll start feeling all these heavy emotions, but what you actually are is underneath those emotions. It's before that, the truth of what you are. It's like you're the space of everything.
It's perfect and so accessible. The third question is, what are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, I'm working on a course right now. I'm working on this leadership course that people can do on their own, and I'm really excited to release that soon. And then the other thing that I'm super, super excited about is I'm going to Germany, and I'm going to be helping build a community out there. Like I feel like we're building these grid points on the planet where we can go meet with each other and connect and travel to each other and have time to like really spend time in close quarters with each other, perhaps even like living with each other and spending a lot of one-on-one time just hanging out in groups and seeing how we like we're kind of tuned into each other, and so and just starting to like learn from each other in these ways. So I'm really excited to start that in Germany and connect with everybody there. We already have a community that's really growing in Amsterdam, so it's not going to be too far away from that. And then I think we're just going to keep kind of like really building solid points where there's just solid community centers at these different places on the planet, and we all just move around between them and see each other and know each other, and so I'm excited about that.
Where in Germany do you see this taking place? Which part?
It's feeling like Cologne, because I keep meeting a lot of people that are in that area, so it's feeling like Cologne, Germany is where it's going to be.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess before we officially sign off, let our listeners know where people can connect with you online and anything maybe specific coming up for you, and maybe also share how people can get tuned into your daily broadcast.
Yeah, I love that. So I share a live stream every single day, and right now I go back and forth. Sometimes I do it live on Facebook, and then I post it to YouTube later in the day, or I have been doing it live. I was doing it live on YouTube and then posting it to Facebook. So you can find me on Facebook at Nazarah Merah, and find my Facebook page, and I post every day. I'm about to go live. So it's usually sometime in the afternoon in Arizona time. And then you can also contact me through my website, so you can learn more about the program that I have. And I really am excited to just get a way to connect with everybody, because I want to know every single person who's interested in connecting with me. I want to meet you. I want to meet you. We're going to meet, and we're going to be friends, and we're going to hang out. That's what's going to happen. It's not just going to be an online thing anymore. So where everybody's at. I'm I want to find everybody so we can start connecting and actually seeing each other. So if you want to get added on my mailing list on there, I'm going to have it so you can actually put where you're located, because we need to find each other and stay connected. Yeah. So my website is nazarahmerah.love.
Awesome. We can't wait to see you again in person as well. Well, Nazarah, thank you so much for this super inspiring and enlivening conversation. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you, and we're really excited to release this.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So good to connect with you guys in this way. I love you both so much, and so happy to be a part of your community.
Oh, we love you too. All right, that's it for this week's Ownstream Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this awesome interview with Nazarah Merah. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode for links to everything mentioned, including her website, a link to the blog article where she describes her dramatic awakening, a link to her New Awakened Leaders offer, links to all the books she mentioned, and the other resources we discussed. All of that can be found at ownstream.co/Nazarah Merah. That's ownstream.co/NAZARAHMERAH.
Also, please sign up for our weekly tip-off email at ownstream.co and just click the sign up button in the upper right-hand corner. This is where we share each Monday 3 cool things we've learned in the last week in the areas of lifestyle, business, and spirit. This could be an amazing quote, individual tip, or tool designed to bring you more freedom and power in your life. So definitely sign up for that again at ownstream.co and just click sign up.
Finally, please leave us a review on iTunes. We really need your help in expanding our reach, helping us to inspire more people and spread the amazing ideas discussed on this episode with Nazarah Merah and others too. If it feels right to you, simply go to iTunes, search for the Ownstream Podcast, click ratings and reviews, then click that 5th star and leave us a brief comment on how this episode has inspired you. Thank you so much for considering that. We are very grateful. Also, we're on Twitter at Ownstream and on Instagram, where we post regularly at own_stream. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Ownstream Podcast. To learn more and connect with us, please visit ownstream.co or follow us on Twitter at Ownstream and Instagram at own_stream.